Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review. This is today is the day doing this video, which is August 7th. It's the 1 year anniversary of me posting my very first movie review. So I figured do a video of a movie that's should be a very popular movie this time of the year, and especially considering the fact that tomorrow, which is August 8th, and it's a very big anniversary because it's the 40th anniversary of Richard Nixon resigning, becoming the only president in American history to resign. So I figured do a review of the movie about Nixon and the Watergate break-in, which of course is the quintessential political thriller, which is All the President's Men. It was directed by Alan Palooka, which stars, of course, Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. And of course, those of you who don't know the film, when it came out in 1976, 2 years after Nixon had resigned. And this movie, even though a lot of people felt that this movie or Network, which also came in the same year, should have won the Academy Award for Best Picture, but they both lost. I ended up losing to a little-known movie called Rocky. But that was the year the movie came out. So of course, One of the President's Men was the political thriller, and it's about, of course, the two Washington Post reporters, Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, who investigate the Watergate break-in as reporters for the Washington Post. Of course, and also in chronicles, of course, the first few minutes of the film, and the opening sequence of the film is of the break-in itself, and how the on the break-in on the Watergate, the burglars ended up getting caught, getting arrested, and who first covered the Raymond, who happened to be Bob Woodward, who investigated the break-in, and he was the first reporter that was assigned by the Washington Post to cover this. And because at first they thought it was just a local story, and then when Bob Woodward started digging, and then of course Carl Bernstein, who went in on the story, so the editors said, "Oh, okay, you can work with Woodward on the story." And of course, that's how the two got together for the story, because at first I thought it was a local story, and then when it became a national story, after, mostly Woodward, and then Bernstein started digging, and they realized that it was these rogues in the CIA who were doing these under orders, and presumably they were under orders from Nixon to tap or to steal files from the National Democratic headquarters, which were housed in the Watergate office complex. Of course, they also had a hotel. They also had office buildings in that complex. And of course, the burglars broke into the complex and to bug and steal files out of Democratic headquarters. And of course, they ended up getting caught. And of course, the next year, and because of the digging that went on with Woodward and Bernstein, the next year, practically the entire year, 1973, they had a hearing on, and of course, it looks like by 1974, it looks like they're going to have an impeachment trial for Nixon. When Nixon quit before they even had an impeachment trial. Unfortunately, in the movie, they didn't go that far, and they didn't cover the hearings all that much. They didn't cover the hearings enough because the movie ends when Nixon was sworn in as president for the second term in 1973. And of course, they ran the teletype of what happened to all the people who were involved with the Watergate break-in. And of course, the last thing was the Nixon resigns. Ford to be sworn in on August 9th at 12 noon. And that's how the movie ends. So it ended before they even covered the Watergate hearings in Congress or in the Senate. But it covers the whole investigation by Woodward and Bernstein till the inauguration. That's where the movie ends. But in terms of the whole thing, it does show how hard Woodward and Bernstein were working just to prove the conspiracy, how hard it was for them to even finagle the people who were involved, or people who were working behind the scenes, and told what really happened. So that's pretty much the whole movie, and how they tried to work the story and trying to get involved and see who was involved. Why was the Democratic headquarters broken into? What were they looking for? And that type of thing. Of course, you also had the famous sequences in the parking garage with Woodward, played by Robert Redford, and Deep Throat. There was a source, of course, a few years ago. Deep Throat was mentioned. Funny came out and said, I was the one who tipped off Woodward and Bernstein. But in the film, they only had Bob Woodward dealing with Deep Throat, and not Bernstein. I don't know if Bernstein ever had any dealings with him. I believe Bernstein did say later on that he also talked with Deep Throat, but in Deep Throat had nothing to do with the one of the first famous porno movies. Deep Throat was a name they gave this guy because it was like deep background. So I figured this is to give the deep background on their stories. They nicknamed the guy Deep Throat instead of giving him a real name because they actually didn't want to expose him. Because there were all laws that reporters were not allowed, to reveal the sources. They can go to jail for the contempt of court because they don't reveal their sources. So, but to keep the source on the maps, they call him Deep Throat. And Deep Throat in the film was played by Hal Holbrook. In the movie, so you know who it is, and because you do kind of see his face a little bit, and you do recognize him. If anybody who's ever seen Hal Holbrook act, he's passed away since then. You know that's him. You can easily recognize him. You can easily, even though it's mostly in the shadows, you can still see enough of his face to know who it is. But also you had Jason Robards playing Ben Valley in this film. He was, of course, the editor-in-chief of the film. Not in the film, he was the editor-in-chief of the Washington Post. And of course, one of the many outbursts that this character had in the film was he was discussing over the fact that nobody was all the people that Woodward and Bernstein talked to, they all refused to go on the record, but they gave them information, and he wants. Bradley wants people who actually go on the record for stuff. And he says, God damn it, when is somebody going to go on the record on this story? And you can tell he's frustrated because he wants people to actually go on the record. And not be, quote-unquote, unnamed sources. And even people who represented the Nixon White House were Nixon spokespeople, or his the media spokesman says, hey, these guys are all relying on unnamed sources. I mean, it's ridiculous. Can they actually name somebody? By using the term unnamed sources, it looks like they're making the stuff up to hurt the president and did not get him re-elected. But meanwhile, he ended up getting re-elected president anyway. But you see the frustration of both sides on why these guys are using unnamed sources. They refuse to name anybody. They're using this guy named Deep Throat. I think maybe because the name Deep Throat became so popular because of the Woodward and Bernstein stories in the Washington Post, they used that name for one of the first, if not the first, porno movie. A widely successful porno film. But that's what, of course, that wasn't brought up in the film movie either. So maybe a few years later, by the time All the President's Men came out. But unfortunately, this is the first and only time that I know of that Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford starred together in the same film. And I think they did a great, job, on-screen job. Of course, actually, when they first get together, there is no tension between the two actors, at least on-screen anyway. I don't know what their off-screen relationship was, but at least on-screen, you could tell there was like tension between the two reporters trying to one up each other, trying to work the story and see who's the better reporter and all that type of thing. But Carl Bernstein was the more experienced reporter of the two, because it was established in the film that Bob Woodward was working there for working in the Washington Post for 9 months at the time of the Watergate break-in, and Carl Bernstein was there for years. So you have the more experienced reporter versus the younger, less so experienced guy. So you have that Woodward trying to prove himself as a reporter, trying to say, hey, I could match Bernstein with doing this thing, doing a reporter, doing my job as a top-notch reporter. And the two of them, Woodward and Bernstein, have made their careers off the Watergate break-in and all the Watergate stories they came out with. And eventually, I guess maybe sometime after Nixon quit or whatever it was, they made a buck telling their side of the story about how they worked the story on Watergate break-in and all that stuff, and that became the movie that we all know called The President's Men. And let me tell you, I feel that, especially in 1976 when the film came out, that Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford were better looking than the real Woodward and Bernstein. So the two of them were not that great looking. I don't know any reporters that are that good looking as Hoffman and Redford. But like I said, if you want to see the story, or at least the Hollywood version of it. I do remember the Channel 13 a few years ago, and every time on the anniversary of the Watergate break-in, Channel 13 here in New York, which is a local PBS station, would show All the President's Men, and then afterwards it would show a 2-hour documentary called Watergate Plus 30. I remember, I forget what the subtitle was, but it was Watergate Plus 30. I mean, it was I think a 2004 or 2005 documentary on the whole Watergate thing, and they do interview some of the people who were involved with the Watergate break-in, and of course some of the people who of course died since then, and it tells the actual story of what really happened. Of course, when the Watergate break-in happened, Nixon's chief of staff, I think it was, I forgot the guy's name right now, says, who else will break into the Democratic headquarters? We would. So he knew right away that they were involved, or had a hand, or at least had a direct hand in it. I mean, not directly in the Watergate, but at least had a direct hand, or hired the guys who did. But as a film, you do have some great actors who were in this film. You had Jane Alexander, who was in the film, who of course 3 years later starred with Dustin Hoffman in Kramer vs. Kramer, so she's in this film. You also have Stephen Collins, of course 3 years later starred as Captain Decker in the first Star Trek film, and starred years later in Seventh Heaven, the Seventh Heaven television series. You see, I already mentioned Jason Robards and Hal Holbrook. You also had, I think Warner Blossom played uh, one of the editors or the head of the department on the city desk anyway, who sent Woodward and Bernstein out to send Woodward out to cover the arraignment. And you also see Nicholas Costner, who was also a great character actor, as one of the lawyers who was watching the arraignment. So you have some great character actors who was in this film. Of course, Hoffman and Redford got the top billing. So thanks for watching the video. That's my review of All the President's Men. Please click on it, rate it. Please subscribe to my channel and please forward this video onto your Facebook pages. Thanks for watching and catch you next time.